Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back your Disrupt MC and Special Projects Editor TechCrunch, Jordan Crook.
Yeah! We're feeling it now, right? We're getting close to the end. Everybody's amped. We're going to find out who won the Battlefield Finals, but not yet. Right now, we are going to speak with Citymapper's Azmat Yusuf and moderator Mike Butcher. Please welcome them to the stage.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's me again, Mike from TechCrunch. I'm joined by Azmat Yusuf, the founder of Citymapper, and I'm sure everybody in London, if you're not using Citymapper in London, honestly, I don't know how on earth you're getting around the city. Excuse me, I'm terribly sorry. Got a bit of a cough after all these days. Azmat, let's start from the beginning. You came up with this idea because you were actually personally frustrated about getting around London, weren't you?
That's right.
And the first app was not Citymapper, but Busmapper.
That's correct.
Tell us the story.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur before I knew what I was going to do, but I knew it was going to be on mobile. And I thought that I would move to East London and live there because it was the place to be if you wanted to do such things. And I also decided...
What year was that?
This has got to be like 5 years ago. This has got to be like the iPhone is out. You know, open data was just starting to happen. Everybody was trying to figure out what do you do with apps. I mean, I was trying to live a low-cost life. So I would be wandering around London as people do, and was trying to figure out how to take the buses around in order to be...
Was this when you were at Google?
This was after. So after Google, I spent a little bit of time at Seed Camp doing random stuff. And
let's remind everyone what you were doing at Google again.
Google, I wasn't doing anything particularly important. I think that was probably the reason I wanted to do something. I'm a product person.
Were you like Big Head in Silicon Valley?
Sorry? I wasn't, right? I was here in London, so...
You know Big Head in Silicon Valley, the HBO show who doesn't really have a job in Google?
I don't.
In Hulu?
I haven't seen the episodes.
I apologize.
I mean, it's a great company. I just wasn't doing anything in London. I wanted to be a product person and build something. So, I mean, I was thinking, what do you do in mobile? What do you do that's a useful problem that you can solve? And my personal issue was that I was trying to figure out how to get back home at like 3 o'clock in the morning on a bus. So
where were you out at 3 o'clock in the morning
well,
in London?
Mike, different parts of London, actually. I'll take you sometime.
Tell us more.
Places where it would cost you a lot with a taxi to get back.
Yeah?
So you had to figure out...
Nightclubs, bars,
very like
restaurants?
shawarma shops.
Shawarma shops.
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
so
you get hungry really late at night, and you just got to have that shawarma, and you got to figure out how you get back home. And I mean, London is incredible because it's a city where so much stuff is spread out, and it's such a flat city that if you can figure out how to use the buses, you can go anywhere. And so I was obsessed with this idea. You have this network of buses, and how do you get the mobile phone to help you figure out how to use them?
And this is before the buses had the readouts of the times.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Back then, the problem was, what does this bus do? People would just get on a bus and ask the driver, where does this go?
Yeah.
So first, we just wanted to solve the issue of what does the bus do and where does it go? And then when real-time data happened, it was incredible. I mean, just the use of buses just became so much easier. And the fact that you could...
At the time, I was on the Mayor's Digital Advisory Board. And we got pitches from London Transport coming in every month to say, we've had this great pitch from IBM about building our transport system. What do we do? And we just said, don't buy IBM, release the data.
Yep, great.
So, in a funny sort of way, you should give me shares in Citymapper.
Yeah, Mike, thank
really.
you. I mean,
I helped.
It was thanks to you that we now have all this data that we can use.
You're welcome. So you saw all the open data being released by the Mayor's Digital Advisory Board, which I was on. And I'm joking. But anyway, you saw the data.
I mean, the open data thing, to give credit, like, I mean, like for a decade, people have been pushing governments to open up data. And I think we've benefited from that. I think it's just a great concept, which now seems like it's almost understood.
Were you the only ones, one at a time, thinking about doing this product, or were there others?
No, there were lots. I mean, back then there was lots of buses, and there still are lots of bus apps and tube apps. I think what happened through the Busmapper experience was understanding that this was a problem. I thought it was just me that had this problem. Like everybody else knew what was going on with the buses. I was just the only idiot who just needed help, you know. But it turned out a lot of people wanted to understand how to use the transport and better. So the whole impetus of kind of going from the buses to creating a comprehensive everything app was this idea that the city is a place where if you can generate these multimodal options, you can change the way mobility, you can change the way you move around. And if the government opens up the data, then we can focus on the problem of figuring out how to design those experiences. So we've through that opportunity, we've redesigned the way A to B routing works. The way you think about A to B now is completely different. It's still evolving right now. We're doing multimodal routing in which we combine like cars, like taxis, with trains. So that means that parts of the city that you thought were disconnected for someone without car ownership suddenly becomes accessible.
Well, you launched. Well, I mean, let's just do the link between Busmapper and Citymapper.
Sure.
What was that link?
The link was, I did the buses first because back then you wanted a focused app and to solve a smaller problem because you're starting with no resources, right? And I think when I felt like there was an opportunity to fundraise, that you could take on a bigger problem. And so when that happened, the design of the entire app had to change.
But how did you interest investors in investing in a startup that's going to help people get around a city more? Where's the kind of pay dirt for an investor in that model?
You know, I never thought European investors would be into it. But what happened is that when you have an app that people are using in this city, some of the investors actually use public transport, so they were actually using it. And so it became very easy to tell the story that this was a home screen app that people were using all the time, which is something that investors are interested in. And I think it's great that over the past 5 years, you've had investors in Europe that have been willing to invest in a great product, and do that. I think that's something we used to complain about back in the day, right?
But I presume that they were attracted by the fact that you were going to do not just London, but as all the world's cities.
Exactly, exactly. So the proposition, if you like, is that there are all these complex cities around the world. You have data that's becoming opened up. You have data that needs to be fixed, which is actually a lot of what we do right now. And there's an opportunity for someone to go do that. So you have the map of the world, right? And what we're trying to build right now is the transport data of the world, specifically in cities. And that's something that hasn't been done properly.
What do you do if you want to go into a city? You have about 29 cities now?
I think we have 35 to 40.
What's the most obscure city?
Obscure meaning?
Well, off the beaten track. Is
gosh.
You got one in Uzbekistan or something? Or
yeah, not yet.
Venezuela?
I think one of the interesting takeaways on that is so many of the cities are unique and different in their own way. There's an aspect of just like scale where you just copy paste and you can expand.
Name me the latest top three. Whatever.
We just did Moscow, right? We just did Moscow like 3 weeks ago. That's pretty hard.
So who did you pay off to get the data in Moscow?
So we got some of it through open data, and some of it we created ourselves. So a lot of
it's really, I don't understand. How do you create data from the city when you get people to walk around with GPS routers or something?
Something
Stupid
like that.
question,
I mean, a lot of what we've been doing is sort of you see the product that we have as a consumer product, right? And everyone thinks that's sort of what we are, and that's great. But a lot of what we've been doing is building tools to create data. So we've gone from being like a designy company that has, that takes open data and designs good experiences to actually finding when you go and expand into cities, a lot of the data is actually really bad. Now, bad data does not work for commuters. Commuters know their cities very well. So you have to get a lot of things right. Now, I think it's great that the cities and the agencies are producing open data, but a lot of it is kind of a mess. So what we've been doing lately, a lot of the product we built are actually these tools to fix data. Like the engineers were fixing data, and then we built tools to abstract away from that so that anybody could. And then we found that our tools, you could pretty much use them just to create data. So we can even go to a city and create data from scratch if we wanted to.
Do you, how often do you butt up against government agencies who say, hold on a minute, are you working for the CIA or whatever?
We haven't been accused of that. Most agencies have actually been great. I think 3-4 years ago, open data was still like a debate, and now it doesn't seem to be. I think what the good ones have realized is that we actually help enable their services. and the fact that apps are complicated and we kind of keep updating them. We're always updating the app. We're always sort of making it bigger. We built something for wearables. We built something on multiple platforms. We're adding new features for it. And so they realize that they building their own apps is like, that's not what they do. They're an infrastructure company, and they should just give us data and help us sort of. And
are you going into these conversations with the argument that this is going to economically enrich the city, empower the city, give it to us, and you know.
Exactly. And you know what? We don't even have to make the argument anymore.
Right.
It's sort of something they understand. So what also then happens is they just have to, I mean, it's tough stuff, right? The data and making it accurate and updating it. You have to update it all the time. So a lot of what we're trying to do is help the cities and agencies now figure out how to do that.
So you raised 10 million initially, which is still quite a lot actually to begin with.
Yeah.
And then 40 million this year.
Yeah.
$40 million to be specific. What do you think flipped the switch amongst investors to double down in that manner? You had Index Ventures, Benchmark Capital, Yuri Milner, indeed. This is quite a list of stellar investors. What did they say to you when you came back to them and said, look, it's working?
To be honest, a lot of the investors came to us. I think we have more of a heads-down approach. And to be honest, I was trying to resisting raising a lot, because I think when you have something that's working, you know, and it doesn't really cost a lot to do some of the things that we do, you want to make sure you don't overcapitalize your company. So I think there was a degree of just trying to understand how big the opportunity is before you fundraise and do that. And so, you know, it felt like we generally have a lot of investors coming to us, and you have to actually say, hold on, let's try and figure out how big we actually really want to make this company. Money doesn't really solve all problems.
How big do you want to make it?
Well, I think to be responsible, I mean, as much as how, in terms of problems we have to solve, immense. I mean, the number of cities we still have to do and the things we have to do, immense. But I think it's responsible to also think about how big the business can be before you overcapitalize it, and to think very hard about what that could be. The other thing is in our types of companies, it doesn't actually take much money to do things. Like, we spend nothing on marketing, right? So we basically invest in a team, a really great team, and we invest like servers and technology. But I mean, you know, there's no capex. It's basically an information product. And
your marketing is the product.
Marketing is the product. Thus far, we haven't spent on anything. I mean, we could, but you know, I mean, and so it doesn't really take that much to do these things. It's more like just figuring out how to solve the problems, and how do you price that. You just have to do it. You have to find good people that want to solve interesting problems.
But you're terribly sorry. The product marketing itself, or a virality in terms of people sharing the product with each other because it's so useful.
Yeah, that's generally the idea of it. We want to make something that's useful, that people actually just sort of itself distributes. I mean, and
how? What size of a city can you go down to? Can you get down to villages, towns, or what?
Yeah, we can. I think the problem set changes and it becomes less valuable. So if you're trying to get from A to B in London, it's actually pretty complicated. There's 10 ways of doing it, and it helps to have it. If you're going to a smaller city, then maybe you just want to know the departures. So you just want to know what time is a bus coming. Right. So yeah, there is a proposition. It just happens to be a different one.
What about the sort of where can you sort of, where's the end game here? Because at the moment the app is free, you get an incredible uplift. You get, what sort of users numbers are we talking about now? Have you released any new user numbers lately?
No, we haven't released any user numbers.
Tens, 20 million, 50,
who knows?
100 million?
Who knows? You know.
Give me throw me a bone here. What?
Zillions?
100?
No, not that much.
Zillions?
I mean, we're
2 zillion?
You know, yeah, something like that. Around
right.
up or down a bit.
We're in millions, though. We're obviously in millions.
So yes.
Yes, we're in millions. Tens of millions.
So see, Mike, how many users do you have?
Just me. I'm the only one.
There you go. And that's the way we think about it. We think about users as individuals. You know, you go into a city and you start from scratch, right? You launch a new city and you start from scratch. And we think about it in terms of the cities that we go into. And basically, it always feels like we have no users.
But
you always start in a new city.
Cities? Let's call it, say you had 1 million users in each city, so 29 million.
Who knows?
Not going to throw us anything? No. Nothing at all?
Nothing.
30 million.
Who knows?
Let's go for like, I don't know, 40 or 50.
Who knows?
Okay. What's the end game here? Let's go back to my original question. What's the end game here? The app is free. So what are you going to do now? You're taking a cut of the amount of, for instance, you can order an Uber from within the app. Can you take a cut of that fee, or can you take a cut of a fee from other kinds of some other kind of transportation?
From the business side, what's interesting for us is actually it's interesting. There's many different ways we can monetize this, and part of the challenge we're having is we're trying to figure out which one makes more sense of us. You're going to see us in 2017 actually start to make a business out of this and see how we do it. But how we do that is something which we feel like is a competitive advantage that we're going to have. And so, but I would say that there's actually multiple ways that we can do it. When you have an app that has an audience, that audience has value. When you have data about mobility in cities, that has value. I think our tools have a lot of values, and to a certain extent, some cities want to use our tools in order to create and fix data. And there's an entire enterprise industry there, where it's actually a billion-dollar enterprise software industry around tools that can be used to actually create and fix data in cities. And if you really scale that out, you think about the number of cities in the world and the number of agencies in the world that can use, that have really ancient, software systems they're using. There's like Windows from the 90s or something in order to like fix and do stuff. They can use better tools there. I think there's a lot of opportunity with getting governments and cities to now think about our world, right? We make all these things independently, but how do we actually go and start solving problems that have to do with the city?
You could effectively end up holding a city to ransom, couldn't you, if they don't have any infrastructure?
Hold them for ransom? No, I mean, what we're trying to do is empower them to use the tools in order to be able to, inform citizens.
But once
right?
you've got all the citizens in that city using your app, they've got nowhere else to go. Who's going to compete against
Not really. They have their own. I mean, it's open data. So we help them create open data. We don't necessarily control the thing. We're just saying we can make you better tools to do it. Yes, sure, we're able to access it, but then so can anybody else. But see, it's not about control. It's not about having singular proprietary access to it. It's about we have to fix these systems out. I mean, you've got one part of the economy like us making all these great products and talking about how to make something perfect, and you've got this other part of the economy which is using antiquated software.
Let's get back to how are you going to make money.
So as I said, there's quite a few different ways we can do it. You'll see us
virtual goods, advertising. You've got a big audience.
And stickers. Stickers is going to be huge.
Messaging.
Yeah.
How are you going to make money though?
I think we're just going to double down the stickers. I think that's going to be the way to do it. Like in Asia, stickers.
Is it selling the data
like
to cities? Is that part of the idea?
That is one of them. Yeah, that is something we can do. I think it depends on what we can do that helps them improve the city.
Once you've got these cities captured, you'll be able to sell the users back to the city. You'll be able to go to businesses saying, listen, I know that 10,000 people are going to be in your area in the next 5 minutes. Do you want to make offers to these people? Kind of like a Foursquare model in a sense. Could be an interesting model there.
I don't know if we're that interested in local. I think if you think about transport as being a really valuable industry in itself, the local aspect is something others are doing, and it's fine, and we partner with various local players like Foursquare and Yelp and the like, but I don't think that's what we do so much as the transport side is interesting to us and the data side.
I see. So that's an interesting hint. So the transport aspect of it is how you'll make money. It's going to be...
I think you'll see us doing more with transport and data.
Transport and data, possibly ticketing, possibly taking a cut of that Uber transaction.
I mean, what we have, which is really interesting and valuable, is information about mobility in a city. And you've gone through a phase, I think, in the past few years where we said we can help design mobile experiences that help make the use of the city's infrastructure better. So we like to believe that we've made better utilization of the city. So for example, people are taking buses because of us that weren't taking buses. The next phase, I think, what we'd love to do is help the city replan what to do with the infrastructure. Now, if you think about it, like you have this sort of infrastructure in the city, and how is it evolving over time? How slowly is it doing it? We're talking about the future of cities and all this tech and everything. How are we actually going to help the cities themselves replan the infrastructure to make it better? And I think the data we have and the insight that we have and the tools that we have can actually help us make our cities better prepared for the future. We have congestion issues, we have mobility issues, And I think with the smartphone, the open data that comes from, you watch the buses, you watch the people.
Maybe your plan is just to sell to Google for $1 billion like Waze did.
That's boring.
Why?
It's boring. I mean, what's the point?
You don't like $1 billion?
Billion. It's like if you have an opportunity to build something great and solve real problems, which we think we can, then why not do that? Isn't that the whole point?
You tell me.
We think so.
What about $2 billion?
Well, look at it this way. It's probably harder to turn down 10 million than it is to turn down $1 billion. There's a point where it doesn't matter anymore.
You can only buy so many yachts.
Yeah.
What does the city of the future look like to you?
That's a great one. That's a great conversation a lot of people are having. I think part of it is around efficiency, right? Right now, the way we utilize the city in some ways is pretty inefficient. Hopefully, we made it a bit more efficient by helping people understand where things are and how they operate. But I think there's a better way to actually utilize the infrastructure and resources of the city to make it more efficient for not just mobility, but even if you think about the planning of a city. Where do we plan something? The Olympic Park that we are in right now, where do you put residences?
It's like heat maps.
And take London as like a city that's just growing in size, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to accommodate everything? You have the Crossrail coming in a couple of years, and that's going to change aspects of the city. I think it's pretty important to think about how we can make the city work for a larger number of people in a way that's still a good experience. Because a lot of commuting is a really bad experience. You're stuck in a tube or a bus, like with standing room, just like everybody hates their morning commute. So I think what we should really try and do is think about how we can redesign cities in order to work for the future we want to have in cities.
So, well, at least whether it's 2 billion or 10, I certainly hope you do manage to fix our cities. Azmat Yusuf from Citymapper, thank you very much for coming to TechCrunch.
Thank you for having me.